Hey everyone, Megan here from The Wandering Goose, coming back to you with another subscription box. This one is going to be the box being sent out in January that you'll use for Valentine's Day in February. So a few things that you're going to want is you're going to want some paintbrushes, some water, your glue of choice. I prefer to use the super glue, but you can use wood glue, a pair of scissors, a sponge, a paint palette if you have one. If not, a paper plate is perfectly fine. And then we're going to be mainly using these two colors, peony and soft pink. I also have a fine white paint marker. That's what I do to do all my detailing. So when it's done, that's about what it's going to look like. And then that was what that one's going to look like. Obviously, you can always switch up the colors a little bit if you'd like. Change the sequence of them and do whichever looks good to you. You don't have to do exactly what I do. I'm just getting my pieces ready here, and then I'm going to start sorting the pieces by color. So I'm going to separate out the colors, all the pieces are going to be the same color. The easiest way to keep your pieces, especially the smaller ones, from running away from you on the table is to take a piece of painter's tape, roll the two ends a little bit so that the sticky side is up. As you can see, I've used this piece of tape a few times. But then that way you can press down all of your little pieces that you're going to be doing, and you don't have to keep chasing them around the table. So here I am deciding what colors I want to make the same shade of pink, and I'm starting with the dark pink first. Once I have all my pieces separated to the color that I want to use, I'm going to start with the dark peony. And I'm just going to use the fat end of my sponge, dab it straight up and down on my pieces just to get an even coverage of the pink. Once I have all of my dark pieces done, I'm going to switch over and do the, get out a little bit of the soft pink, the lighter pink. And for this part, I'm going to actually take a little bit of the soft pink and put it in another tray, and then a little bit of the darker pink. And I'm going to mix those two together and create a medium pink. When you get your kit, then you can just kind of scoop out a little bit of the soft pink and a little bit of the darker pink. And then to get the color you want, it's going to be a matter of ratios. For this one, I did almost a 50-50, half light and half dark, and kind of just mixed them all together. And once I have it mixed, I can move on to my next section of pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all of these pieces off of my tape and replace it with the pieces that I want to do for the medium pink. Since I already have medium pink on the brush that I used to mix my paints together, I'm just going to go ahead and apply it directly onto the backer piece for the bottom heart. I'm just going to go around the edge, making sure that I am going across that line just a little bit to make sure that there is no naked wood showing. Once you're done with that, you can go ahead and put your brush in some water so you don't get it all crusty. And then go ahead and take your pair of scissors, and we're just going to cut off the end of our sponge to get a fresh, unpainted sponge. Just a little bit off the end. And then we're going to use that medium pink and go ahead and dab it on the rest of our pieces that we want to be the medium pink color. While I still have that medium pink color on our sponge, I'm going to go ahead and take some of the darker pink pieces that we had already painted. They should be dry by now. And I'm just going to add a little bit of the medium pink to the edge just to give it a little bit of highlighting. And then I'm going to, right there I used just a little bit too much of the medium pink, so I'm taking some of the darker pink and I'm just going to dab it back on to kind of blend that in a little bit better. So I just did a little bit on the edge just to give it a little bit of highlighting. I'm going to do that for a couple of the pieces here, just to give them a little bit of an interesting piece. So I'm going in with a little bit of the darker pink, a little bit of the medium pink. I'm going to blend those two colors together on my sponge. And I'm going to go through and just add a little bit of that lighter shade of pink to the edge. If you don't like it, you can always paint over top of it. Try again once it's dry. So just feathering out so that there's no harsh lines. And just giving a little bit of a highlighting to these pieces. And while I have a little bit of the dark pink on my sponge, I'm going to go ahead and just add a little bit to the edges of my medium pink pieces, just to give a little bit of shadowing. With all of these colors, you can kind of mix and match and do whatever looks good to you. And as I said, it's just paint. So if something doesn't look good and you don't really like the way it turned out, you could always paint over top of it, and then once it's dry, try again. All of the shadowing and highlighting is always, of course, optional. So if you feel like you want to do another technique on it, you can always do that too. While I have the medium pink, I am going to go ahead and do a few more of my dark pink pieces. And as you can see, I have a little bit of a line there, so I'm adding a little bit of the dark pink to my sponge so I can go back over top of that line that I had created and fix it, blend it back in with the rest of the original dark pink. And I'm just going to keep playing with it until it gets the way I want it to look. And I'm going to start moving around my pieces to get ready to do my light pink. I'm starting to just kind of put my pieces on my project to see how it looks. That one I didn't quite like the way that the mini heart inside blended. So I'm going to add just a little bit of the darker pink back onto that particular heart so that that little mini heart stands out a little bit more. Now I'm going to go ahead and get ready to start working on my lighter pink pieces. So I'm putting all of my light pink pieces onto my tape, moving off all of the pieces that I've already painted, and I'm going to get started on painting the light pink. Since this is such a light color, I'm going to want to cut the end of my sponge off, get a fresh sponge, and then use that light pink that I had already poured earlier. And I'm just going to paint on the door. If you have the sandwich board, you will not have a door in your kit. Your kit does not include the door. There's nowhere to put it. So this portion of the video is for those that do have the door piece for their birdhouses. So I'm just adding a little bit of the soft pink to it. Once I have all of my soft pink pieces painted, I'm going to go through and just add a little bit of that medium pink onto my sponge with a little bit of the soft pink still on it. And I'm just going to add a little bit of shadowing to my light pink pieces. You can always use your finger to kind of blend things out. And just adding just a tiny smidge of that medium pink to these pieces. And once I'm done adding the medium pink to my pieces, I'm going to add just a little bit of dark pink to a couple of them. So I'm adding dark pink on one half of my sponge and then the original light pink on the other half. I'm just going to do a little bit of shading on my pieces with the dark pink. Here my dark pink line ends up being a little bit harsher than I wanted it to be. So I go ahead and I flip the sponge over to the light pink side. And I'm just going to feather it out a little bit. And then kind of smooth it with my finger, blend it so there's no harsh edges. And then going back through with the dark pink and just kind of touching it up. And I'm just going to keep playing with the colors a little bit, feathering them, smoothing them with my finger until I get rid of the harsh edges and kind of just blend everything together. Then here I decided I wanted to add a little bit more of the light pink to one of my darker pink pieces. So just adding a little bit to the edge, just to give it a little bit of highlight so it's not quite so two-dimensional. Once I have all of my pieces painted and the way I think I'm going to want them to be, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of assemble things a little bit, make sure everything's the right shades that I want it to be, or if I need to do any touch-ups. Here I decided that I wanted to do a little bit of the darker pink, medium-ish, not quite so dark, maybe more of the medium pink. Just kind of feathering on the bottom of my door a little bit. Just giving it a little bit of an ombre look. Once I finish painting all my pieces before I glue them together, I'm going to use my fine paint pen, shaking it up a little bit and then just kind of pressing the end to refresh it. I'm just going to add a little bit of accent lines to my pieces. All of these accent lines are 100% optional. If you don't want to or you don't have the means to do them, then you absolutely don't need to. I'm just adding them to give a little bit of character to the pieces. Now that I've added all the accent lines to my pieces, I'm going to go ahead and grab my glue. I prefer to use the Gorilla Super Glue, which we do have available in store for purchase, or even on our website. And I'm just going to add a couple dabs here and there of the Gorilla Glue to secure my pieces. If you don't have Gorilla Glue, wood glue works perfectly fine as well. The thing with wood glue you need to remember is that it takes a little bit longer to set, so you have more of a tendency of your pieces sliding around before the glue is set. So just remember that when moving your pieces, that if the glue isn't set all the way, they may shift. With the Gorilla Glue, it tends to set in about 15 to 30 seconds. So I'll just place my pieces down and let gravity do its job for most of the pieces. Every once in a while you might need to hold down a piece to get a nice good secure, but for the most part I just put my piece down and then let it cure. And there you have it. All of your pieces are attached together and you are ready to display your new pieces. Thanks for joining me for another month, and I can't wait to see you next month. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on our Facebook page, Wandering Goose of Holland.